So let's talk about underwriting small and medium business risk for a second. It's a very, very attractive market. There is hundreds of thousands new startups being created every year. But the practices of underwriting for small business haven't really changed in a very long time. And there's one step in the entire policy lifecycle that's essentially holding it hostage. And that's risk assessment, which is the hardest part. If you're assessing a small business risk, you only really have two options. You can either base it on descriptive statistics, so it's a pizza shop in Illinois, and you price it like any other pizza shop in Illinois, or you can try and figure out whether Sally's Pizza is any different to Joe's Pizza. On paper, they might look exactly the same, but maybe one of them delivers, the other one doesn't, or maybe one of them opens late, or maybe Sally is a better manager than Joe. The only way for you to figure it out is to look up that information, either Google it. Either way, it's very, very time-consuming. And because it's so time-consuming, you end up only doing it twice in the entire life cycle. The first time at submission, and then again a year later at renewal. Not because it's the best way to do things, but just because it's really, really hard. And you have to ask your clients a ton of questions, which, needless to say, they don't like very much. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if accurate risk assessment for any size of business was so quick and easy that you can run it continuously, where and when required? You would only have to ask your client very few questions, and now, because the assessment is real-time and on demand, it's actually based on real behavioral characteristics of the business, representing reality much better. Your clients would enjoy a much more pleasant experience buying insurance, and you would be much better equipped to bring new products to market. And if all of that wasn't enough, you'd also be able to share valuable, non-obvious information with your clients to help them mitigate risk before losses even happen. Isn't this a much better way? Well, we think it is. Science for Small Business helps you do exactly that. Continuously assess risks of any size at any point in the process, as and where you need it. We collect, just given the name and address for any business, relevant information from numerous sources out there. Then we apply artificial intelligence and machine learning to derive meaningful components and curate the data and actually figure out which data parts have predictive power. And then we present a holistic overview of that risk to you, and all of that within just a few seconds. And of course, the outputs are then available through a REST API, which makes it really easy to use at any point, be it upfront for market segmentation or for straight-through processing. So let me show you really quickly how a bionic underwriter of the future, I just love that, by the way, can produce a quote in just under 2 minutes. So I am an independent agent. I would like to produce a workers' compensation quote for a small seafood place. I have a name and address for this place, and all I have to do is go and press the button. Guidewire Risk Analytics very quickly then returns a couple of things back. One, an overall overview of the risk, represented in the form of a rating, 173 in this case. It also tells me how this company compares to similar companies within the same segment, and it gives me a couple of other predictions, like, for example, how likely is this quote to be bound, or how likely this company is to suffer significant losses. I could actually go ahead and just produce a quote from here, but if I did that, I wouldn't be able to brag about all the data that we collected in the background. So let's say I'm curious about the context of this rating, and let's dig a little bit deeper. The first thing it tells me is that it recommends that I increase the price by about 7% based on this rating, and it also shares a couple of important pieces of information that impacts the rating the most, both positively and negatively. So you can see that this company is located in a fairly safe neighborhood, which is always good news, and it hasn't had any prior violations, but it has a fairly sizable commercial fleet, and it seems to be located pretty far away from the nearest hospital. And by the way, for each and every one of these pieces of information, I can see how this company compares against everyone else within the same segment. So not that great in this case. We collect this information across 5 different categories, and I could dig deeper into any one of those. So I see that not only this company is located pretty far away from the hospital, it's also far from the nearest fire station and the police station. So I'm beginning to understand why the rating is what it is and why it's recommended that I increase the premium a little bit. Overall, within just those few quick seconds, Science for Small Business goes ahead and collects over 100 different data components across multiple categories. We'll look both at the business itself, what type of services and products they provide, for example, and its surroundings, what type of companies are in the vicinity, what's the area like, and so on and so forth. So from here, all I have to do is add a couple of pieces of mandatory information, like payroll, for example, and we have a quote. As promised, in under 2 minutes, and most importantly, based on real information for this specific company that we collected on demand just now. Well, it's entirely possible that I'm just a little bit biased, but I personally think this is really cool. Now, we think that the ability to assess risk quickly, easily, and on demand not only will help you transform your business today, but will also help us all future-proof our industry for when risks become more flexible and intangible.